Karen left a fake ticket on my wife's car. 6 patrol units took her down. You ever wake up thinking the day's going to be ordinary, then wind up watching your neighborhood implode over a parking space? Yeah, that was a Tuesday. I'm Caleb Monroe, 38, high school computer science teacher. Moved out here to Willow Haven with my wife, Lauren, a district attorney, because we wanted quiet, trees, space, a place to raise a future family without car alarms and apartment walls thin enough to hear your neighbor sneeze. But we didn't factor in Karen. Karen Clifton, blonde bob, tactical yoga pants, clipboard, and a superiority complex so strong it could shatter concrete. She called herself the interim HOA enforcement officer. Problem was, we didn't have an HOA, not a real one, but she printed up official-looking forms, wore a lanyard with a fake seal, and acted like she ran the block. We humored her for a while, let her knock, let her complain about trash bin placement, but that Tuesday, she crossed the line, and 6 police units had to clean up the fallout. Part 1. It started like any normal morning. I walked out with coffee, ready to kiss Lauren goodbye as she headed to court. That's when I saw a bright orange slip under her windshield wiper, flapping in the breeze. Parking violation, it said. Reason overnight parking beyond resident permission. Fine $150 payable to W.H.R.A. Due in 5 days, or risk action. There were 2 problems with that. There's no such thing as H.R.A. The vehicle in question was parked in our own driveway. Lauren stepped out, heels clicking, files under arm. What is that? I handed her the slip. She read it, blinked, then laughed, but not the funny kind. This is a criminal offense, she said flatly. I frowned. You serious, Caleb? This is falsifying a legal document, impersonating an enforcement body. If I filed this at work, our office would trigger an investigation within the hour. We both looked across the street. Karen was watering her lawn in a robe and sunglasses like she hadn't just tried to extort a city prosecutor. We didn't confront her yet. First, we took the paper inside. I scanned it. Lauren analyzed the legalese. It's a Frankenstein, she said. Copied pieces of real citations, pasted in her own nonsense. The logos from an HOA in Texas. I chuckled, but I wasn't smiling. I used to work cybercrime. I know intent when I see it. This wasn't an accident. Karen wanted power, and she was testing the waters with us. And if she was bold enough to target Lauren, a DA, what had she done to everyone else? That's when we started calling. Neighbor after neighbor. Each of them had a story, an official notice about their porch lights, a fine for aggressive landscaping, threats about non-approved bumper stickers, all of them signed W.H.R.A. And all of them looked just real enough to scare people. Lauren's voice grew hard. She's been doing this for months. These are paper crimes, but they have teeth. We didn't want drama. We wanted justice. So we made 2 calls, one to the police precinct, one to the city licensing office, and that's when the dominoes started to fall. Part 2. The precinct didn't laugh when I brought in the citation. In fact, the moment Lauren identified herself and handed over the forged violation, the on-duty officer straightened his back like he'd just been handed a live grenade. You said this was left on your vehicle this morning, he asked. Lauren nodded. Illegally parked in my own driveway, forged fine, fake department code, and impersonation of a government body. The officer's eyes moved across the citation. Sir, ma'am, this isn't the first one we've seen. That's when I knew we weren't just dealing with a power-hungry neighbor. We were dealing with a pattern. Back at home, Lauren got to work. She filed an official complaint with the county attorney's office, then pulled every record we could access under the Freedom of Information Act. Meanwhile, I started my own operation. I built a local database from scratch and called it the Fraud Files. I went door to door carefully, respectfully, and asked neighbors if they'd received any odd notices. I thought maybe we'd get 5, maybe 10 at most. We got 43 fake violations, 17 fake dues requests, 8 actual payments that people made to a PayPal account tied to Karen, Enforce URA, Org. I followed the trail. Karen had made nearly $6,000 in fraudulent citations, some for mailbox maintenance, some for out-of-code fencing, and 2 for walking a dog over 60 lay bees without reflective leash. Lauren paced the kitchen behind me. This is mail fraud, wire fraud, unauthorized practice of code enforcement. She's going away. I wanted to believe that, but we both knew it wasn't that simple. Karen had allies. Turns out Karen wasn't just operating solo. She had helped 2 men listed on early HOA flyers as community compliance officers. Neither were certified. One was her brother-in-law. The other A fired former mall cop with a badge he'd ordered online. But that didn't stop them from knocking on doors with clipboards and handing out warnings like Halloween candy. They threatened elderly couples, shamed young moms. One teenager was told his skateboard ramp was an aggressive structure. I filed all of it. Then I called in a favor. Remember, I used to work cybercrime. One of my old buddies, Shane, is now a digital forensic contractor for the DOJ. I sent him the WHRA website cheap, poorly masked, and hosted on a free domain. Within 24 hours, Shane had traced its origin registered to Karen Clifton, paid using a prepaid debit card tied to her personal email. She hadn't even tried to hide it. But what pushed it over the line? She had a complaint report form people could fill out on the site, and that form sent direct messages to her printer. We found them all. Mailbox paint faded, Hispanic family with too many guests, African-American couple plays music late, car too loud, not neighborhood material, racist, targeted, systemic. My hands shook reading them. Lauren didn't speak. She just printed everything. And the next day, she walked into the city prosecutor's office and said, "I'm filing for criminal charges." But what really broke the case wasn't legal. It was human. A neighbor named Mr. Jefferson, an 82-year-old retired bus driver, told me Karen had come to his door yelling last year because he refused to pay a $75 lawn deviation fee. He showed me the notice. It had a threat at the bottom: non-compliance will result in neighborhood citation escalation and formal notice to law enforcement. He'd paid it out of fear. I recorded his story, got his written affidavit, and I sent it along with all the others to Channel 8. I didn't want headlines. I wanted witnesses. The anchor called me back that night. "You've got something big here. We're sending a crew." By Friday, the story broke. Fake HOA president accused of targeting neighbors, filing fraudulent citations. The footage showed screenshots of the violations, the phony badge, the WHRA website, and a freeze frame of Karen at a community meeting shouting about the decay of traditional values. The comments section exploded. Some people defended her, at least she cared about the neighborhood. Others called it what it was: fraud, abuse, and a con. That night, I walked past her house. Her lights were off, but her front camera blinked. Still watching, but I knew something she didn't. The next knock on her door wouldn't come from me. It had come from the state, and this time, she couldn't write the ticket. Part 3. You can always tell when a liar realizes the lie's no longer working. They get louder, more frantic, more theatrical. That was Karen the Monday after the news story broke. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was doubling down. She posted 3 rants in the community Facebook group titled "Keeping Willow Haven Clean." In them, she claimed she was misunderstood, a caretaker of standards, and that all citations were suggestions from a neighborhood council. She ended each post with, "If we don't hold the line, the property values will fall." The comments brutal, but Karen wasn't done. That afternoon, she called a public emergency meeting outside the community mailbox station. She printed flyers and stuffed them in every door slot. I showed up with Lauren, quiet, observing. About 20 people circled around her folding table. Karen wore aviators and a neck scarf like she was hosting a political rally. She brought a megaphone, but her voice shook even with amplification. "I've kept this neighborhood from falling into chaos," she barked, "and I won't apologize for wanting order." Someone in the crowd shouted, "You faked a government ticket. Another, you stole from Mr. Jefferson." Then Lauren stepped forward, calm, professional, devastating. "You impersonated a legal authority," she said. "You lied, and you took money. From immigrants, from seniors, from veterans. This wasn't order. It was exploitation." Karen's face twisted. "And what are you going to do about it?" "Take me to court." Lauren didn't flinch. "No, the state will." That's when the murmurs turned into movement. 3 people stepped away, then 5, then 10. Karen stood alone beside her table, gripping the edges like they could hold up her collapsing world. She didn't know yet, but her clock was ticking. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A detective from the county's white-collar crimes unit wanted to meet. When he arrived, he had a folder an inch thick and a look that said, "Serious?" "We've built enough for arrest," he told me. But the problem was this Karen had lawyered up. Her defense. She never claimed to be official. The citations were community guidelines. Donations, not fees. Free speech, not enforcement. It was garbage, but legally dangerous garbage. The line between HOA suggestion and legal fraud can blur until you prove intent. Luckily, we had the receipts. My forensic buddy Shane sent over a file that made the entire precinct lean forward, a PDF recovered from her deleted Dropbox folder titled Violation Templates, Final Versions, Official Looking. PDF, it included step-by-step instructions on how to print, fold, and affix citations to vehicles. It even had placement tips for maximum psychological effect. And it was signed Karen C. That was the tipping point. The detective called in a search warrant. The judge approved it that night. The next morning, I watched from my porch as 6 patrol vehicles rolled into Willow Haven like a flood of truth. Officers stepped out fast, coordinated. They taped off Karen's house, approached with calm but firm voices. Karen came out in pajamas and a bathrobe, arguing, pleading, denying. She reached into her mailbox and pulled out a piece of paper, waved it like it meant something. One officer stepped forward and said, "That's not how this works, ma'am." Then they cuffed her right there, in front of the box where she once left warnings like threats. The irony, she didn't even see it, but the neighborhood did. Phones were out. Cameras rolled. Mr. Jefferson sat in a lawn chair, watching quietly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Karen was escorted to the cruiser, and just like that, the queen of fake order left the block in the back seat of the law she thought she could imitate. But this wasn't just about her. As the officers searched her house, they recovered 116 unused citation slips, a laminating machine, a binder titled Neighborhood Compliance Targets, a list of addresses marked with the words, "High-risk, low-value families." That one made my stomach twist, because this wasn't just control. This was profiling. This was systemic. And that made it a case not just for local police, but for civil rights attorneys. Lauren made the call. The Department of Justice was now watching. And Karen's story, it had just gone federal. Part 4. The story didn't die with the arrest. It ignited. That same afternoon, local news stations aired clips of Karen being led into the squad car, handcuffed and wild-eyed, protesting to no one. The footage went viral by nightfall. But what shocked us all wasn't the reaction in our community. It was the wave that hit everywhere else. Comments flooded in from other states, other neighborhoods. "She looks just like the woman who fined my grandma for a flag on her porch. We had one like her in Arkansas. She made a disabled vet take down his ramp." These people weaponized pretend authority. Enough is enough. It was like Karen had become a symbol not just of one fraud, but of a national pattern. Lauren stared at the screen, quiet. I could tell her mind was already 10 moves ahead. "We've uncovered something bigger," she said. "This isn't just about Karen. It's about a system people have been afraid to challenge because it's dressed up in words like community and compliance." I looked around our living room. Mail stacked with supportive letters, USB drives from neighbors, notes from people thanking us for giving them the courage to speak. It felt like we'd opened a vault of buried anger, and now it was pouring out. 3 days after Karen's arrest, Channel 8 ran a follow-up Phantom HOAs, How Unlicensed Neighborhood Enforcers Are Targeting Families Across America. They aired our interviews, Mr. Jefferson's story, and photos of the fake citations. But the part that hit hardest, the moment they read aloud Karen's list, the high-risk, low-value families folder she kept hidden. There were audible gasps in the newsroom, because names on that list weren't just about lawn decor or fences. They were ethnic, single mothers, non-native speakers, mixed-race families. Karen hadn't been enforcing rules. She'd been enforcing bias. That's when the DOJ officially announced they were reviewing her case for civil rights violations. The backlash was swift, unforgiving, and loud. People who once nodded along with Karen's speeches about neighborhood pride were suddenly silent or scrambling to distance themselves. The two compliance officers she worked with deleted their Facebooks overnight. A real estate firm she'd partnered with pulled her as a consultant. Even the HOA Facebook group, it shut down and reopened under new management with a full apology post pinned to the top. We allowed one person's ego to masquerade as community service. Never again. But the damage had already been done. Lauren and I received hate mail, accusations of destroying a good woman's name, and inviting outsiders into our town. Some of it was anonymous, some of it wasn't, and then something even uglier happened. Someone slashed our mailbox, wrote the word traitor across our garage in red spray paint. Lauren stared at it the next morning, jaw tight. "We're not backing down," she said. I nodded. "Then we do what we do best," and we did. We filed a police report, installed security cameras. Neighbors came over to help repaint the garage. Mr. Jefferson brought coffee and offered to stand watch at night. That's when I realized something. Karen hadn't just broken the law. She'd broken the illusion of unity that this neighborhood pretended to have. Now, everyone had to face the cracks she exposed, the racial double standards, the fake friendliness, the whispered judgments behind closed curtains. And honestly, it hurt, but it was also the beginning of something honest. The city council reached out to Lauren. They asked if she would help design a new neighborhood resolution, one that would protect residents from unauthorized fines, surveillance, and discrimination dressed up as decor enforcement. She agreed on one condition. This time, we built it in public, with everyone at the table. No clipboard, no fake badges, just real voices. That Sunday, the town held its first community transparency forum. Over 200 people showed up, Black, white, Latino, retired, single moms, business owners. Some admitted they'd turned a blind eye to Karen's tactics because she kept things tidy. Others said they never knew how to speak up because they feared being targeted. The forum ran 3 hours past schedule. No one left. Near the end, Lauren took the mic and read a line. I'll never forget. You can't build safety on silence. You can't build pride on punishment. And you sure as hell can't build community through fear. There was a pause, then applause. Real, human, tired but hopeful applause. Not for what we were, but for what we might still become. Part 5. You can bulldoze a building, you can burn a sign, but community. You've got to rebuild that one soul at a time. After the DOJ got involved, everything moved fast, faster than we expected. Karen was indicted on 6 felony counts, including impersonation of a public official, mail fraud, wire fraud, and violation of civil rights under color of law. But even before the courtroom lights flickered on, our neighborhood was already changing. Some changes were small. Kids started chalking up sidewalks again. People actually waved, really waved, not just the tight-lipped kind we used to do when Karen was watching from her porch cam. Porch swings came out. So did cookouts. Some changes were big. The city passed the Willow Haven Resident Protection Act, an ordinance banning any unlicensed entity or individual from issuing neighborhood fines, notices, or compliance orders without legal registration and due process. It included clear language about discrimination, harassment, and fake HOAs. Lauren helped write it, but the biggest change, it happened in people's minds. I'll never forget the day Mr. Jefferson told me he was planting flowers again. He hadn't touched that strip of dirt by his fence since Karen threatened him with a weed abatement citation. He stood there in the dirt, holding a tray of petunias with his cane tucked under one arm, and said, "Took me a while to remember this street was mine too." That moment broke something in me, because it reminded me why we did all this. Not for revenge, for restoration, but restoration isn't simple, and it sure as hell isn't clean. When Karen's trial finally arrived, the courtroom was packed. Local press, neighbors, former victims, even one woman from another state who saw Karen's story on TikTok and realized she'd been harassed by someone using the same fake ticket template. Karen's lawyer argued that she was just trying to enforce a standard of decency, that she didn't mean harm, and had always acted in the interest of community harmony. The judge didn't flinch. Neither did Lauren, who stood up as a witness for the prosecution and calmly read a portion of Karen's own notes from the target list file. "Push them out quietly if they don't comply." The room froze. Karen stared at her shoes. That silence. That was truth echoing through tile and wood. She was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 9 years, eligible for parole in 5. Some people said it was too harsh. Others said it wasn't enough. Me, I didn't cheer, but I did breathe. Because justice isn't about feeling good. It's about being able to walk out your front door without fear that someone with a clipboard is deciding whether you belong. We still live here. Lauren and I stayed, even after the threats, even after the mailbox got vandalized again once. Just once. It hasn't happened since. Instead, neighbors now knock before sunrise to drop off fresh eggs or leave sticky notes saying, "Thanks for speaking up. Stuck to our fence." There's no more HOA. Just people. People figuring out how to live beside each other without rules made in shadows, and without one person acting like they own everyone's peace. And for the first time, this feels like home. Call to action, final discussion. Trigger: can people like Karen be forgiven, or are some betrayals too deep to come back from? Is justice about punishment or rebuilding what was lost? Where would you draw the line between community standards and control? Drop your thoughts. Let's talk about what real neighborhoods are built on.